And so the fish swims up and he bites into it thinking, oh, I'm going to have a nice meal. And then when he bites into it, he realizes, this isn't what I bargained for. Paul says that I was not deceitful. Now, the reason that Paul could be so bold and the reason that Paul could confront evil in the manner that he did for the gospel that he preached was because he knew that what he believed to be true, because he had seen Jesus Christ resurrected from the dead. Now, how was it that he could be so sure of himself? How is it that you and I can have the same confidence to go out into the communities today, into the world, into the areas of public debate, and put forth the Christian message and do it with confidence and assurance? Well, let me give an illustration. Anybody know what happened on April the 14th, 1865? Anybody have an idea? How about April the 9th, 1865? Civil War, Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln attended a play at Ford's Theater, April the 14th, 1865, against the advice of his advisors, who still thought the situation was not secure enough for him to do that. But Abraham Lincoln wanted to unwind for the evening. You know, you're engaged in Civil War for the last 4 years. You probably need a break from time to time. So he got away that night. And of course, you know what you've been taught in the history books, that John Wilkes Booth that night made his way up to the presidential suite while the security guard was taking a break, and then fired 2 shots. And of course, it took the life of Abraham Lincoln. Now, how do you know that actually happened? Does anybody here remember seeing that? Was there a video camera? Anybody old enough in here to think back to when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated? I feel that old this morning because I've been at camp with 600 people this week, okay? How do we know that what happened, as has been recorded in the history books, is true? How do we know that George Bush didn't go back in time in a time machine and assassinate Abraham Lincoln, right? I mean, my goodness, he's blamed for everything else, right? Let's blame him for this too. I wouldn't be surprised if at Harvard University that's not actually being taught. We know that John Wilkes Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln because there were dozens of eyewitnesses. They were there. They saw it. And in the weeks that followed, these people put their hand on the Bible and they solemnly swore to tell the truth. And it was upon the recorded testimony of these eyewitnesses that later these conspirators were tried, found guilty, and later executed. Now, what I want to tell to you this morning is that we can use this same rationale in our defense of the truth, particularly with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 15, 3 and 4, I'm going to quote from the old King James, "For I delivered unto you first of all that which I also received, how that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day according to the Scriptures." And typically they say, well, that's the gospel. That's the end of it, the death, the burial, the resurrection. But it goes further. Paul later on goes to say that he was seen. He was seen by the apostles, and then he was seen by over 500 people at once. And can I submit to you today that what we believe is not fairy tale? What we believe is not myth. It's not just a nice bedtime story that makes all the sorrows of this world a little more palatable, but rather that what we believe, our faith, is based on an actual historical event, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, backed up by the eyewitness accounts of over 500 people. And I dare say that more people were a personal eyewitness to the resurrection of Jesus Christ than they were to the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Chuck Colson, a man who himself has spent time in prison for the Nixon-Watergate scandal, remarked about this, and he said that people will die for something they believe to be true, but they will never die for something they know to be false. And I want to say this morning that you may say, Pastor Steve, I want to cling to truth. I want to pass it along to my family, but I'm all confused with all the different ideas that are out there. How do I know what is truth? Well, let's start with the definition of truth. Truth is this. It's that which fits the facts of reality. Truth is that which fits the facts of reality. And so then the question can be asked, how can I know what is true with all the many different world religions out there and philosophies? Well, the answer to that is easy. You can do this just with a simple logical exercise by asking yourself 3 fundamental questions of existence. By the way, every world religion, every worldview will have to answer these questions in some fashion or another. The 3 questions are this: how did I get here? Question of origins. What went wrong? Or why is there so much evil in the world? And how can it all get fixed? Now, we don't have time to go into all the different worldview religions and things like that this morning. So what I want to do is just show you how the Bible chooses to answer those questions. And how that in answering those questions, we can see that the biblical message best fits the facts of reality. And for that reason, you and I can be confident in communicating truth to our family and friends. Let's look at the first question. How did I get here? The Bible chooses to answer that question with this word, creation. Write that word down, creation. Now, I don't want to get into a big discussion about Darwinism and evolution this morning, but by the way, I do think, though, that is the arch enemy right now of Christianity. Our kids go to school and without any other opinions are being told that you cannot believe both the Bible and science, that if you embrace the Bible, then you have to turn your back on science. And by the way, if you embrace science, you have to turn your back on the Bible. Let me read you a quote by Matthew D'Agostino, a famed evolutionist. He said this, "We're not absolutely sure what life looked like once the process of evolution was fully underway. Something like algae, the biologists suggest, a foamy, blue-green pond scum." Now let me ask you a question. You ever feel like scum? You ever been called scum by somebody? That looks like a good fishing hole. It really does, right, Mike? Scum. See, the way that you believe, the way you answer the question where you came from affects every other area of your outlook on life as well. If you believe that you came from scum, then it shouldn't be any wonder why you feel like scum. Okay? If you believe you're just a mass of cells put together by chance and accident, then your life has no meaning. Your life has no purpose. Somewhere along the way, you have to admit a very unscientific statement, which is that living things come from non-living things, that animate material comes miraculously somehow from inanimate material. Now, I wish to say for those who say that you cannot believe both the Bible and science, you have to choose one or the other, that there is a scientific law that states what Mr. D'Agostino just said to be scientifically inaccurate. It is the law of biogenesis. Anybody drink milk this morning? Drink milk? Good. So did I. Does the body good. Drink lots of milk, okay? More than likely, you drank milk that was pasteurized, correct? Anybody not drink pasteurized? No, I don't want to know that, okay? Pasteurized, named after a French scientist, Louis Pasteur. From Louis Pasteur, we get the law of biogenesis because you see, extensively, he performed experiments to prove conclusively, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that living things can only come from living things. That is reality. Darwinism, in its many forms, have never been able to demonstrate any time whatsoever that living things came from non-living things. They've never been able to show it, but rather Louis Pasteur has. And by the way, for those who would say that, well, those who believe the Bible, you guys are really just uneducated and ignorant, and really, even to use the term stupid, there are a lot of really smart people who concur with Louis Pasteur that living things only come from other living things. How about this guy, Albert Einstein? Anybody think he's a moron? I don't believe so. Albert Einstein said this after spending his life observing the natural universe. The harmony of natural law reveals an intelligence of such superiority that compared with it, all the systematic thinking and acting of human beings is an utterly insignificant reflection. Albert Einstein. You know, Charles Darwin wrote Origin of the Species. After studying his writings, I'm not even convinced that even Darwin himself believed that living things came from non-living things. Listen to this quote. Probably all organic beings which have ever lived on this earth have descended from some primordial form, get this, into which life was first breathed. Now let me tell you how it really happened. And by the way, it takes a whole lot less faith to believe in the miracle of creation than it does to believe that everything that we see that is so complex and so ordered arose out of lifeless nothing.